Good morning. So let's have a little chat, shall we? Or should I say grand rising? Let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I'm up here on the early morning. um, I've been trying to talk about this case, but I've been so angry and so furious about it. And if they would just give me 1 minute in the room with that man that I'm getting ready to talk about, just 1 minute. I kept saying, please let me run into him. I would torment him for eternity if I could, because that's what he did to that little boy that I'm getting ready to talk about. And how it all just connects to the toxic, and I'm going to say it, the toxic masculinity and the toxic masculine culture within especially the black community, because isn't Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan supposed to be black? Uh-huh. Okay. There was a story, a very disturbing story that I'm going to be very careful and choose my words very carefully when talking about this story. A young boy, I believe his name was Chance Crawford. You all go look up the story. Go look up the story of Chance Crawford from Orange County, California. One of the worst cases of child abuse that I've ever heard of, inflicted upon an innocent child. But to give you a little backstory, to make this, make long story short, Chance's mother was working late nights. I don't know what she did for a living, but she worked late nights. She met this man named Ernest Lamar Love. I don't know how he can have the last name Love, because there's nothing about this creature, and I'm going to call him an entity and a creature, that represents love. He is an entity, an evil entity, and I really hope that it's publicly known in the prison, and I hope they do not put him in protective custody. I hope that it is publicly known in prison what he did to that little boy. I hope it is. I don't want him to die. I don't want him to die. I want him to live. And then this person has the unmitigated gall to plead not guilty. And they're only saying that he could get only 32 years when he should get life without parole. But that's the culture that we live in. But nevertheless, Ernest Lamar Love was, I think, some type of youth minister. Here we go with the church. He was a youth minister at this woman's church, Chance's mother's church. And she and this man were, I'm going to say, having frequencies with each other. There's some alluding to the fact that she may have been trying to date him, or he might have been trying to date her. I don't know. But nevertheless, she entrusted the safety of her child with this man because she had to work late or something like that. I believe what happened was the little boy had an accident. He urinated on himself while he was at a park with this cretin called Ernest. And I don't even know how to say this. This bastard picked up a piece of lumber, wood lumber, and proceeded to take little Chance back to his house. And people could see, from what I'm assuming, that he had a look on his face, the little boy, of distress. You mean to tell me none of those adults around him, but you niggas always talking about I'm keeping it real. We for the people. We for the kids. You know, only white men do stuff like that. You mean to tell me that none of you niggas and bitches that were around, I'm not talking about women, I'm talking about bitch men. You mean to tell me none of you niggas and bitches, you saw what this man was getting ready to, he was at a public park. And you mean to tell me no one asked the little boy, are you okay? Do you feel safe going with that man? Oh, that's right. You can't say that anymore to a black man because that's looked at as being racist or being a Karen or a Darren. Where were your Karens when this was getting ready to go down? That's right. You can't approach black men anymore and call them out on anything rightfully. I'm not talking about harassing people unjustly. I'm talking about you see a child that is in distress and you see this big grown ass man with a lumber making the child go with him and nobody had any questions. Better yet, I want to know, why did this mother leave her child with a man that she barely knew? And why didn't she leave him with the father? The father was very interesting in those interviews. He's an interesting caricature. Little Chance was failed all the way around. Nobody would save him. Quick story. Let me interject. And I'm not trying to give myself any accolades or anything like that. But when my brother had his second to last child, it was a girl. My mother was supposed to watch her, my little niece. My mother was supposed to watch her. But my mother had to go to the dentist or something like that. I forgot what it was. And my mother asked me, she said, well, can you come up here and just watch her for a little while? Y'all, I really didn't want to. I didn't feel like it. This was some years back when she was first born. Maybe about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, because I think my niece is about 5 now. I didn't want to, but I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and do it because I don't want anybody else watching my niece. And I don't want to hear one of those stories that they took the baby somewhere else and somebody mistreated the baby. You know, because at that time, I believe my niece was, I think she was born prematurely, if I'm not mistaken. And she was crying a lot and stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of people don't have patience with stuff like that. I do. My patience is very, very, very high when it comes to children. I don't have any patience for adults. I don't like them motherfuckers like that. But when it comes to children, my patience is, you know, of course, different. So I'm just looking at this situation and I'm looking at all of these people that were involved, the mother, the father, of course, the credent, but the community around. I know I talk not so great about my family sometimes and my upbringing. I know I do. But one thing I will give my family is this. They may have been brutal towards me at times. They may not have been the nicest towards me at times. But I tell you one motherfucking thing for sure, and two things for certain. They may not have been perfect, but I will tell you this much. What happened to Chance Crawford, unfortunately and tragically, would have never happened to me as a child. Because my family would never let me go off with no strange man that they just met. Even the godfather that I had and the men that were around me as a child, they were stern with me, but they weren't abusive. They may have told me, this is how you sit at this table, this is how you conduct yourself. They taught me. They didn't abuse me. That's why I have some sense. However y'all feel about gay people, I don't give a fuck. That's why I do have some remnants of masculinity, of positive, not toxic masculinity. There's a difference. He took the little boy home and proceeded to assault him with the lumber. And then after he beat the little boy with the lumber, he then forced him to do jumping jacks and push-ups until the little fellow collapsed. And y'all want us to believe that that he's a king? This is the shit that y'all singing about? And I bet you he was probably one of the first people talking about Black Lives Matter and that white people are the devil. Not saying that some of them cannot be devilish, and I don't give a fuck who gets offended by that. Yeah, I said it. But I'm making a point, a bigger, wider point. It ain't just no white people that's the devil. And I don't mean the devil in the mythological context of the biblical context. So you can just take devil out of it. Then he took the little boy to the hospital after he collapsed and said, oh, he fell. Them hospital people looked over that boy's body and could tell that he had been severely abused. But wait a minute, let me back up. After he beat him severely with that lumber on his backside, he then tortured him by pouring some type of chemical. I can't remember what they said. I think it was not peroxide. I think it was something that caused the cuts and the burns and the cuts and the wound to hurt even more. He tortured that little boy because he hated him. He hated him. Because doesn't it seem like black men hate black children? And I don't give a fuck who gets offended by me saying that. This is a spiritual warfare. And then this man had the nerve to be the head of the youth ministry at that church. And now people are coming out saying that he was a problem at the church. And now his record is coming out. He has a record and a history of being violent towards children. But the mother didn't know that. But she left her child in the care of this person. I want to say something else, but YouTube is very sensitive these days. You can't call a thing anymore. You have to use motherfucking code words and ad libs and bullshit like that. You can't just say that somebody is a monster, because that's looked at as hate speech. This man is and was an entity and a monster. But all of that is ignored, right? Let's really get into this. All of that is ignored. And you have stupid, dumb people online telling people that they shouldn't look at the movie The Deliverance if they're a Christian. You know the movie that came out with Monique recently about the haunted family or something? I did a review on it. They're telling people to be afraid of that. But they have an earnest love sitting up in their church. They have a whole predator sitting up in their church. They have a whole predator who's a predator against children on the youth ministry of their church or in their church. But they're telling us to be afraid of the movie The Deliverance. Please make it make sense, people. Please make it make sense. Make that make sense. And then on top of it, instead of this man taking or having, some contrition and taking some responsibility for what he did, because people are saying he had an anger issue. That ain't no anger issue. That's a psychotic issue. I have an anger issue. I know that. People with anger issues have anger issues normally towards other adults. I don't like other adults. But I know how to calm myself down when it comes to a kid. That man does not have anger issues. So please let's stop trying to pigeonhole everything and turn everything into a myopic view or a myopic path. No. That man doesn't have anger issues. We're not going to try to make this a mental thing. He is consciously and deliberately a rageful, evil, clear conscious person. Because if he wasn't, why did he plead not guilty? He's only facing 32 years. And then on top of that, this is not getting a lot of press. But just a month or two ago, when that police officer, Sean Grayson, unalived Sonia Massey, that got press all over YouTube. But this is not getting any press. This is being swept on. You have to really look hard to find information on this case. But we're supposed to be afraid of the deliverance. But the monsters right in front of our face, these entities right in front of our face that are connected to that deity, well, that entity in the Orion star system that you all call Yahweh, Allah, Jehovah, and all those other, horrible ass fucking horrid names. We're not supposed to be afraid of that. But we're supposed to be afraid of a fictitious movie. But we're not supposed to be afraid of the earnest loves of the world, who hate children, especially black children. He tortured that young boy because he hated him. He wanted to see him suffer. Those are facts. Those are facts. But everybody around him failed him. His mother should not have allowed him to go with that man. Then on top of it, they say he was a womanizer in the church, so they had to get rid of him. And black men wonder why I'm really skeptical of them, a lot of them. This is why. Because I see that it ain't got nothing to do with their skin color, because I'm a black man too. It has to do with their spirit or lack thereof. It has to do with their energy, their frequency, and their vibration. Their energy, frequency, and vibration is very, very low. And I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to say it. But it's very, very low, almost on a primal level. But you want us to look at them as some type of kings or some type of virtuous types of men that can do so much, right? This is the Andrew Tate effect. This is the Andrew Tate effect. And let me be clear, very clear. This is not about race. This is about spirit. This is a spiritual warfare. And the spiritual warfare that black men have allowed to be waged against them and their mind, it's called reprobation of mind. If you're a Christian, you should know what I'm talking about. Or reprobate of mind, excuse me. Since we want to be all biblical. The church is not saving you, and it cannot save you. That man was an entity. I can look at him and tell he was an entity and see he got a pass because he's good looking physically. I wouldn't have sex with him because I can tell that his spirit is toxic. See, I know people wonder why people that are around me, they wonder why I act funny towards them because I can see your spirit. I can see your true intentions. If I don't really rock with you, it's because I know what you are. And I know you're a negative, evil entity, and I don't want to be around you. That can be a male, it can be a female. It doesn't matter. It could be black, it could be white, it doesn't matter. It can come with a smile or it can come with a frown. It doesn't matter. I see you. You got to have a good discerning eye. I see you for who you are. And I see that entity, Earnest Love, for what he is. But I find it interesting that the media is not covering this story more. It's almost like they're trying to protect him, the predator, not the victim. But this is the Andrew Tate effect. Because Andrew Tate and his mentality is in alignment with the Earnest Loves of the world. Because they think that type of behavior is acceptable. They think that abuse is manhood. They think that bullying is manhood. They think because you take somebody's life is manhood. That is what they think. They think that bullying defenseless people like children, elderly people, some women, they think that is manhood. Isn't that why Andrew Tate and his brother are being brought up on more charges allegedly? Because 35 women have accused them of the graping them, graping, graping them. You know, you can't say the words no more because YouTube will shadow ban you. When I look at Andrew Tate and I look at Earnest Love, I see the same spirit. I see the same energy. I see the same frequency. The same bullying and fear-mongering tactics. And then you have stupid men out here talking about, well, the only reason they don't like Andrew Tate anymore is, I'm sorry, the only reason they don't like Andrew Tate is because he's bringing back masculinity. How? They're lying on him. Really? You really think they're lying on him? They're not lying on him. Why would he have to traffic women? Because he can. And he does, probably, allegedly. It is so sad that as a gay man, I know what manhood is more than some of these so called pretend straight men. Let's talk about Andrew Tate, and I've said this again. I've said this before, excuse me. Andrew Tate and a lot of the men who think like him, the qualifications and the demands that you make in a woman, you're not going to find that in a woman. You're going to find that in another man. See, you have to be able to read the subtext and the subconscious like I can. These men are looking for men. They're not looking for women. Physically, they're looking for women, they say. But on a subconscious level, they're asking for a man. Women are naturally more dominant in some ways. Because the woman rocks the cradle, she rules the world. And this ain't on no feminism bullshit, because I don't really rock with that. I'm talking about reality. Ain't no woman gonna be letting you boss them around and tell them, go in the kitchen and cook me something to eat. Ain't no woman gonna be letting you do that. Even when that was acceptable, there were stipulations to that, even back in the day. These men are subconsciously looking for men. But when they cannot find men, and when they cannot fulfill that urge, they turn into earnest loves. They unalive children like earnest loves. They become abusers like Andrew Tate and his brother. They become hyper masculine. And people confuse hyper masculinity laced with, how can I put it? Not subtext, no. Underlining or subconscious homosexuality, not being gay. There's a difference. Homosexuality. Subconscious homosexuality, which is more ritualistic, or which is ritualistic. What Ernest Love did to that little boy, veering back to that for a moment, that was a whole ritualistic sacrifice. Because that religion believes in sacrificing children. Oh, they don't want nobody to know that, though. If you say that, oh, you're crazy, you're evil, well, I'll be all that. I would rather be anything than to be an earnest love. But that's what you all like. That's what you like. That's what you respect in the Black community. That's what you like. You don't investigate people. You let people just come into your life. But that's another story. But that's what you like. That's what's upheld. People ask me all the time, why you don't like that person? It's not that I don't like them, but I can sense their energy. And I already know it's going to be it would be a problem between me and that individual. So what do? I stay to myself. and I leave people alone. I pay very good money, not money, not money literally, but I pay in investing and minding my business because I know people ain't shit. All of these men have allowed Andrew Tate, and this man too. I bet you Ernest Love. I bet you he was a follower of that Antichrist, Andrew Tate. They have allowed men like Andrew Tate and all of these other men to lead them to a place where they are destitute. They still ain't got no women. They still ain't getting no pussy. They still ain't making no money. So they're angry and taking their frustrations out on children now because they think by sacrificing children, that's going to bring them wealth and prosperity. That's why Ernest Love took the little boy to the hospital after he killed him because it was a ritual gone wrong. You know, the whole adrenochrome and all of that, get children all riled up and get them in a fear state. You know what I'm talking about. Allegedly, allegedly, I'm gonna say it that way. Because the same thing was done to me as a child. Not physically so much, but psychologically. That's why I can come here and talk about it. Because I know the wickedness of man and woman, but mainly man. They're all for themselves. But you don't want us to be afraid of Andrew Tate and people like Ernest Love because they're two in the same. They're one in the same, excuse me. You don't want us to be afraid of them, but you want us to be afraid of The Deliverance, a fictitious movie. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest. This is the occult view, and it's a jungle out here. It's a jungle. Rest in peace and in power to Chance Crawford. Rest in peace and power to that young man, that little boy. And I hope his next journey is that of prosperity, abundance, strength, courage, happiness, joy. Because this is what they do to chosen ones. Because Chance Crawford was a chosen one. He was a chosen one. Some of you may call it an indigo child. He was a chosen one. And then they have people in the church who are unchosen. but but the church got discernment, right? Yeah, I know. Anyway, I just had to come through and speak on that. Thank you.